G'day, beautiful people. Welcome again to your Monday afternoon. It's wonderful to have you here. Good to see you. Cheers, by the way. I'm drinking a little bit of vodka soda today. Alcohol companies, please sponsor me. And we've got a fair bit to deal with, right? So obviously we've had the GHB stuff coming out. It's been pretty crazy. Yes. I'm really glad to see that I fill the same gap as soap operas do in a lot of your lives. Toon King Tristan, g'day mate, lovely to see you. Vanilla, yes, Alex, mate. I think we've got a game later on this week, so I'm very excited to get my poo pushed in by your iron jaws there. Budtastic, mate, I'm just glad that I can bring you the messy fucking drama that we want from soap operas. Dad Hammer in the chat. Yes, I'm talking to Chris from the Mortally Wounded podcast today, but we're talking in a slightly different way, which I will talk to you about all in a second. Mate, Paul Grixty, the soul, although you might not be the only one yet, perhaps the Postmen have had some more. The Swift Hawk Agents soul sponsor for what is it, stats, LLV loving the stats there. Blitzed, working but secretly watching. Good. The Blitz being a tippity top Seraphon player back in Australia there. Hey, whoa, g'day, mate. Gnomes Bane, good to see you as well. Cheers, everyone. Just in case you did join late, just confirming vodka. Because obviously we need to talk, when we're talking, we need to be doing it with a little bit of alcohol in our bodies. So, bar with grana with mini bong. It is lovely to see you all here. Now I can see there's a bunch of you watching on YouTube as well. Lovely to see you. A couple on Facebook. If you want to join in the chat, come on over to the Twitch side of things because that's where I can see what's going on. If you are listening back to this, whether it's on a podcast or watching it back, thank you so much for your support. Anyone who's a subscriber or a Patreon, thank you. You're amazing. But yes, I've got a couple of vodka buddies out there. Blitz commenting saying let's not be too reckless with words like Seraphon player after the GHB. Yes. Toon King Tristan drinking his sorrows away. What sorrows would those be? Tell me. I hope that it's got nothing to do with your favourite army and the GHB affecting it. JV Chaotic coming on in there with a solid greenskin support. Farsight. I need some rum. I have some rum. Also rum. But I had to bring the vodka as well because as you can see, there's only a little bit of rum left. Spiced rum. So don't worry, I've got all of it. I'm showing off just how alcoholic this particular show is. But let's be honest, you don't come here for the logic, you come here for the dumb shit. And that's what I'm here to give you. Because I was thinking to myself, right, and that's what today's show is going to be dealing with two different things. So the first of which is, this will be the second part of the show. I'm going to bring you an interview with Chris, who is 50% of the Mortally Wounded podcast, the Sydney Slaughter event we just had a week and a bit ago. And so he and I got on and we did a big old interview where we spoke about Sydney Slaughter lists, missions, all of that kind of stuff. So I'll bring that to you all later. In just a little bit. So we're going to go back in time 2 days to 2 days ago, Dan and Chris, and they will talk to all of us, and I will go back in time, and that's how I will communicate with them. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be fine. Don't even worry about it. But we've got a lot to talk about there. Also, Chris is a first place at a very large event getting Fleshita Courts player. He, in fact, won a big-ass metal sword, was the trophy, and he immediately had someone throw a watermelon at him that he then cut in half with that sword. So, totally badass. We're going to be talking about that. Good choice. Now I just need some Coke. No, I don't have Coke. I do have bitters. I have bitters for the rum. That's going to be the second part of the show. The first part of the show is I want to talk about the GHB 2019. Now, before anybody leaves because they're like, oh, fuck it, I've heard so much about the GHB 2019. I'm not going to be reviewing so much the book itself. I want to talk and I want your part in this chat. I want to review the leaks. Because let's fuck right off the book. Let's forget all of that. The stuff that we are really excited about are the leaks as they come out. Now, the leaks for this GHB, were they the same quality of leak that we would expect regularly? Were we maybe a little disappointed with the blurriness, reliability, and language translation errors of the leaks. That's what I want to talk about. So we're going to be reviewing the leaks, and yes, we might give some stuff away as we talk about it. But let's be honest, it's the General's Handbook is coming whether we like it or not. I think at this point in time, just about all of the pertinent information has either been leaked or someone on YouTube has just been like, check it out. So we know what it is, but still I really want to talk about those because the leaks are my favorite part. I don't know why, right? I get super excited. I'm like, I need to know everything that's coming. And then after it happens and after I found out everything, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, all right. Yeah, well, I guess I'm kind of excited to play some games. Yeah, but that like frenzy when you're just waiting for any little drips of information and then some probably like copy editor or something is leaking stuff out. That's it. So yeah, Dad Hammer, you are 100% right. Some of them they may as well just be audiobooks because it's just a lovely little read right through. But yeah, Tomb King Tristan drinking sorrows because his favorite army, I'm guessing being the TKs, are not allowed at a tourney you want to go to. That is devastating. That is very, very sad. I'm sorry to hear that. But Stormcast, isn't that what Stormcast are now? Cetrus and his Imperishables. So just do that. I'm sure it's pretty much exactly the same thing. So we've got a fair bit to talk about. The reduction in Swifthawk Chariot points, bringing a big influx of Swifthawk agent players. Are you excited about that? Do you want more competition as the postmen and women of the Age of Sigmar, or are you more like they're your little protected thing? Myself, I want more dispossessed players. There are a number, but we just don't seem to be doing too well because we play a bit fast and loose with a lot of the stuff. Let's start as we mean to continue, I guess. And the first thing that we will once again begin with, because I just quickly want to touch on just a little pet peeve I have from this week and from the leaks. And it's hurt me and it's upset me. And I want to throw it to you and see if I should be feeling upset about this or whether I really shouldn't. But again, let's just start with me pressing the wrong button there. Let's start and remind ourselves not to panic. Whatever happens, we love War Dollies, we love Age of Sigmar, the game is still intact. Don't panic. Only panic if I accidentally press the wrong buttons. Then we can all start to panic. All right. So the thing that I want to flag, the thing that this just a little tittle that I saw. This was put on the Warhammer community page as one of the posts, and it said this, which really got me excited. This year's General's Handbook also contains allegiance abilities for several factions with expanded rules for Ironjaws, Seraphon, Wanderers, Darkling Covens, you get the point, Free Peoples, Slaves of Darkness, and Dispossessed. Now, the use of punctuation in this sentence seems important to me. Because you said with expanded rules for Ironjaws and then listed off the rest of them as well. That means you're saying that there's expanded rules for all of these factions in the General's Handbook. And expanded, not the expanded, leading me to believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, chat, that the rules that we should have been expanded upon from the last time we've seen them. Would that be a logical step to take if you were to read that? If I'm a player of one of those factions listed, not that there wasn't a little semicolon after Ironjaws and then everybody else. If I was one of those other factions, I should have felt confident in believing that my rules would be expanded upon. Fair? Now, what we then saw, at least as far as the dispossessed. Okay, so Ironjaws, yes, Ironjaws saw a little bit of love, which is great because they really do deserve it. They're an awesome army. They've got so much character. There's a lot of people playing them who are just absolutely rad. And so did Seraphon, which is cool as well. Both armies with books as well, so probably less likely to be redone in the short term. But the thing that got me is then I got my hand on some delicious little leaks, some delicious dispossessed leaks. And when I saw those dispossessed, everything is word for word just about identical to the previous General's Handbook, which is also pretty much identical to the General's Handbook before it. Really, the only change from GHB 1 to GHB 2 or GHB 2017 to GHB 2018 for the dispossessed was they changed the Ancestral Pickaxe, which is the only useful artifact in their arsenal, from being teleports in the hero phase to teleports in the movement phase. That was pretty much it. And then in this one, they've changed the pickaxe's range from 3 inches to 6 inches, which is all quite a minor, to be honest, not a massive change, quite minor. And so basically, I guess you could argue that the dispossessed did get expanded because their 3-inch pickaxe range just went to a 6-inch pickaxe range. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Darkling Covens and Wanderers pretty much stayed the same as well. So arguably, no, these weren't expanded on. You could say that they were expanded on 2 years ago, and we're just keeping you with those rules, which is fine. I wouldn't have a problem with it if you didn't set me up with this fucking lie and let me believe that you were doing something cool, give me something new. I don't care if you take away half of my artifacts, but as it stands, really, of the command abilities that Dispossessed have, 4.5 out of 6 of them are pretty much hot shit. You only ever really see Grudgebearer or Siegemaster. Nothing else is really worth it. So they're already kind of a waste of time. And then out of the artifacts, of the 6 of them, there's kind of really only one good one. There's the amazing one, which is the Ancestral Pickaxe. Then there's an okay one, but the character needs to be... You need a character that doesn't want to fight in combat, Rune Lord, but he needs to be in combat for it to be any good. So realistically, it's just a hot mess. And that's what, for me, I was really disappointed. I wouldn't have minded if I saw my shit changed or slashed or replaced. I just wanted some new stuff to play with. Really haven't got that. Quite disappointing, but I guess that's the way it is. So yeah, just at the shorthand, this one kind of got to me a bit. I don't mind if you turn around and say, look, Wanderers, Dispossessed, Darkling Coven, Slaves to Darkness, all these people, you're all going to have, where we're going to be putting the expanded allegiance abilities for you in there. Because then I go, okay, you're talking about the ones that already exist, that's fine, we're all good. But when you're going like, hey guys, let me talk to you, I'm gonna be expanding on your allegiance abilities, I'm going, what are you expanding? And then when you turn around and go like, psych, we just like swapped a couple of little words around, really changed nothing. Shit, yeah. I am also convinced that whoever did the Dispossessed allegiance stuff has never played them, or if they have, it was a couple of practice games and that's about it. I would love to be proven wrong, but there is just so much stuff between them that just like, it's like, why do they need? You realize how much redundancy there is, just rules that do exactly the same thing multiple times. It was it. So yeah, I think that given that we get one General's Handbook a year and they've built it up to be as exciting as it is, and I am genuinely excited about it, this year for me really, and I'm starting to look at it and going like, each year I'm actually caring less and less about the book and more about the points changes. Like, that's about it. So talk to me in the chat if you play any of the listed ones outside of Ironjawz and Seraphon, of course. Seraphon getting spell laws there. But were there anything that you saw in the leaked Allegiance stuff that whether you were like, actually, nah, this was pretty cool? No, but personally, I'm excited for the battle plans, which Alex in the chat, 100% correct, pointed out. Excited for battle plans, excited for points changes. Other than that, I don't really have a lot. The Allegiance stuff didn't really grab, like not changing much there, didn't really grab me. I think it's a huge missed opportunity, and I find it quite disappointing. And I know that you can't invest a lot into armies that don't necessarily sell a lot, but I think maybe like lighting a little fire under them would have suddenly sold a lot more of those armies. So I just think it's the old thing where energy goes, energy flows. You know, when you're driving your car and you check to see whether there's a car like to your left, and then you see a car, but you realize as you've looked left, you've started to go that way because that's where your attention was. I think that's the disappointing thing for me. When you're not paying attention to some of these smaller actions, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not going to do as well, and like people aren't going to be as interested in them because you're not showing them the kind of love that you are your other stuff. Don't have to show them a lot, just a bee's dick of love, and suddenly they wouldn't feel like a fart in a hurricane. But yeah, so Covens and Wanderers, yeah, pretty much back off the back. Oh, no, Gnomes right. They did expand. They've upped the font size. That possibly was it. But yeah, Gutbusters and Bone Spitters just as powerful. Yeah, they don't need shit. Legends literally said something about. Yeah, sorry, Dad Hammer pointing out. That Darkling Coven's Allegiance ability says they've got a thing like if your hero isn't a wizard, blah blah blah, XYZ, but all of the heroes are wizards. Yep, and it's all banked it. So yeah, it's okay. So yeah, but that's it. But that's the last I really want to heavily talk about the GHB. Only because I think that there's a good bit of stuff there, but that's the last thing I want to discuss, like rules wise, everything coming out. That was just my little bugbear. I was like, look, I'm just going to scratch that itch, get it off my back, so that we can talk about the General's Handbook 2019. Because obviously, it's been a week of leaks. It's been a week of leaky leaks. So it's like right now we are in a big hole-filled ship where just information is coming in left, right, and center. Honestly, I don't even know why we worry so much about it. Basically, this week we have seen some rad leaks coming out, and the quality of the leaks, I will say, is great. It's awesome. So just quickly, if you are watching currently and you're on YouTube, anywhere. Or Facebook, can't see the comments, you've got to jump over to the Twitch side of things. But I love having you here. Thank you so much for joining in, you beautiful, beautiful people. Cheers. Let's talk about these leaks, right? Now, the first leaks that I saw, and I'm not going to put them on the screen because I don't know if I could get in trouble for doing that. I mean, shit, some dude just literally, basically page for page, flip through the book and let you read the whole thing on YouTube. I'm not going to do that. I'm scared. But what I do want to do is just talk about the quality. So the first ones I got were great. They were exactly the type of appetizer leaks you want. And what I mean by that, the leaks were shot from like a distance away with the book clearly like still partially open in someone's hand and on an angle. So you couldn't really read the words at the top, but from about halfway down they got a bit clearer, and then you could only confidently read the bottom, and it was points. So you could tell like the points for about 6 different units, and everything else was like guessing and blurs. That's a top quality leak. As far as I'm concerned, that is the appetizer leak we want to start with. I think that realistically, that's where we want all of our leaks to begin. We want them to come from a place of confusion, frustration, and just general disregard for the audience. Like it feels secret, right? It feels like someone really quickly got their phone out and was like, as someone was reading over their shoulder at work, and just boom, shot it off. I think that was a great first start leak. That was a great appetizer. Really wet my palate for the rest of the leaks to come this week. And then we rolled on. And we got a few more. Okay, actually, to the chat, what was your first leak of the week? And what was it? Like, what kind of a leak was it? Was it a decent one? Were you seeing leaks that just immediately, like they were right in the face, blew your mind out from the very start, kind of like Avatar? Did they warm you up and then work into you like a delicious meal? Greeksty chiming in, just off the back there, was pretty excited for new stuff for some of the older factions. Bit disappointed that it's pretty much just reprints from the last book. Definitely. Matt Pashby, where did I get the fade done? From a lady on Robson Street. She was very enthusiastic. However, like, you're only seeing it from an angle. If you see me in the flesh, I won't lie, I don't love it. For those listening online, basically my haircut, the hairline is very high, so I look kind of like an egg with a mohawk right now. And that's a visual that you can take with you. They said that there were going to be updates to the compendium scrolls. There were no updates. Yeah, that's true. Cool Bunny, g'day, lovely to see you. Yes, Cool Bunny's first leak, I'm guessing, was from the community site itself, telling you that they'd gone up. B for fraud. My first leak after playing Skaven scooting around a dinghy. That's it. The Bringy Dinghy, as it's been called. Great name. Vanilla just asked, perfect picture perfect like a screenshot was your first one. Okay. My first one was an open book, like from a distance, kind of blurry, could only see a little bit. It was a great appetizer leak. Then I got a number of really lovely, crisp, clean screenshots that were clearly digitally taken, so they were good. But the thing was that they were foreign language, which meant that there was a little bit of working out what things were. I mean, most names were pretty locked in, but then, but clear, I could see it, I could see the points. It was very clearly a general's handbook, not some doctored thing. And I was there, I was about it. I saw another, but the problem is that you never get all of it, right? You only get a chunk. You get about half. It's never all the stuff you need. So, that for me was kind of my... it's like, like you've got your appetizers, then you've got your primi, then your secondi, and then you've got like dessert or whatnot. So like that was kind of like my pre-meal. That was meal one, and it was a hearty meal. I think it was like 6 or 8 pages of points, and I just consumed them. Dispossessed was in there. I was like, that's a lovely little steak. I saw that I saw the ones for Seraphon as well. I was like, oh yes, just a little bit of frog's legs in there. There was a delicious little morsel where I got into chowing down on the new Stormcast points. I was like, Iron Jaws as well. That was a lovely meal. It was delicious. That was a very strong build from there. So opening leaks, great. Middle leaks, they filled me. And then I won't lie, the third part of the leaks for me got a little bit disappointing. Because suddenly the leaks that I was seeing were phone photos of a computer screen, which was just damn disappointing. I won't lie, because I couldn't see the points, which maybe is better because it meant that I had something to work for. But these leaks, they just weren't the regular level of leak that we see at that point. By the time we've gotten to like midweek, we should be seeing like high quality leaks, and these were low. I was disappointed in the quality of the leaks. Those responsible for those leaks, you need to up your photo game, your leak game. We have expectations as a community that we plan on being met, and those leaks, they weren't what I wanted. They didn't do it. They didn't tickle me right, but that's okay. That's fine. They were a step. Yeah, Tomb King Tristan, you're 100% right. They were a step back. You'd given me the appetizer. I was like, oof, what a delicious little aperitif to start my meal. Then you'd given me like all of my big, good, delicious, my pasta and everything. I'm like, oh, I'm carved up. And then you went, hey, just have a little bit of sauce. And I was like, but I don't want sauce. I would like my next part of my meal. So I was disappointed in part 3 of the leaks. But then we got to dessert, right? And for me, dessert was suddenly seeing like leaked battle plans, not necessarily enough information to know exactly what they were, but enough to get excited. That's when we started to see the faction, allegiance abilities. And I initially got excited because I saw the Iron Jaws stuff. I was like, oh damn, okay, we're getting there. And then some of the other stuff along the way. And then I saw the dispossessed ones, and I was like, all right, bring it at me. And I'm not gonna lie, like I bit into a fingernail. Like in the middle of that meal, I was just eating, and then I was like, oh damn, that's it. That's awful. I was disappointed by that one, and then the couple of other leaks came along where I was like, oh guys, what are you doing in the kitchens? So they were great quality leaks. The presentation of those leaks was amazing. It was just the substance of the leaks let me down a little bit, and that is not the leakers' fault. The leakers out there, you are working your hardest. You only have a couple of big ones a year. This is obviously it. That's just good effort. I just wish you had the substance to back it up. Blaze Be Mad. G'day, mate. Good to see you. Have I missed anyone else? I'm so sorry. Yes, sorry, that's it. So then we got to our little dessert, right? We got to the dessert. Matt Pashby, these people obviously aren't leaky enough, correct? The Bringy Dingy, we'll talk about the Bringy Dingy in a minute. I think I need glasses. Yeah, that's all right. Vanilla just asked, Alex, commenting 100% right, you almost needed reading glasses to properly decipher some of the leaks, which is good. That's a good thing for me. I like that because it's not a leak if it's too clear. I want to work for it and then I want to be like, is it a 6? Is it an 8? I don't fucking know. So I was all about it. But then just after my dessert, basically the waiter came over with an entire menu and just started beating me in the face. And on the menu, it just said hard up leaks, and it was just someone just wailing on my face with leaks, which was pretty much Dad Hammer. You are 100% right in the chat there. It just a number of people reviewing the General's Handbook, obviously being sent review copies a little bit early, and literally just reading it word for word. Dasa meat was back on the menu. I don't know if I was the meat or the leaks were the meat, but I was like, no leaks. I am done. I am ready to wait for my Warlord Edition General's Handbook so I can read that. And then it was just like, no, you will. And so, yeah, I had the rest of the book shoved down my throat. Now, let's be honest. If we could, we would all just sit there and be fed for the rest of our lives. So I let myself be fed the General's Handbook from a number of different sources. And I was just like, you know what? This spoiled my leaks. It spoiled it. Like my dinner, I had a relatively good dinner, a couple of little disappointing bites, but the leaks were really, really good. And then it was, it was just, well, it wasn't a leak. It was like a cannonball through the side of the ship. Like it's not a little hole you can plug. It's that one's fucked. So yeah, it was pretty big. I would personally give the General's Handbook 2019 leaks out of 10. I'm going to score them, I'm going to score them a 7.2 out of 10. But then with the whole book reveal drops it down to a 6 for me. Up until then, we were at a really good, high quality leaks. Like if it was a meal, I was very satisfied. But then when the whole book just got rammed down my throat, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's just not. It's just not for me. It was too much leak, and I am only so much man. I cannot handle that much leak. So in the chat, talk to me. How did you feel these leaks were? Did they get you excited? Did they get you disappointed? Were they just blurry enough for you to love it? Were they too blurry so you couldn't get the information you wanted? How do we feel about them? I'm out, so I'm just going to quickly top myself up. And we'll polish off the last of the rum. Let's do that. And then we'll switch back to the vodka because that's probably a healthy way to do it, right? What do they say? Everything in moderation. So we'll moderate the vodka with a little bit of rum. So I don't really have time to make a full-on old-fashioned in here, which is real disappointing, but I do love a spiced rum old-fashioned. I've spoken about it before. If you're a fan of spiced rum old-fashioned, order one at your local bar, but ask them to go half on the sugar because otherwise it's going to be super sweet. Rum obviously being sweet. I have nothing to stir this with. I will stir it with a pencil. Rum obviously being like sugar-based, having a fair bit of sweetness in it. You don't want to be having that sugar in there. So yeah, give a spiced rum old-fashioned a try. Don't stir it with a pencil. Cheers to your health. But I was relatively satisfied with the leaks. How is everyone else feeling? Tomb King Tristan, you thought they came too fast. Yes, I would definitely say that. Which is, it's a problem that a lot of people have sometimes. They just can't, they get so excited, they can't maintain the pace. They just come through way too fast. And those leaks definitely did. The leaks came in, they just shit mixed us, and then they left us wanting. There was usually, I think previous times, the leaks have leaked. They literally just little bit by little bit out over the week leading up to it or the 2 week leading up to it. And then if you do get a lot of information, it comes quite close to the release. So you're just frothing to get the book. I would say that this time last week, I was frothing to get my hands on the book. By now, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I need it as much, because I know it all, and it's a bit too much hardcore leaking. which it's just taking the sting out. Beef of Fraud. Do you think Johnson? I won't lie to you, Beef of Fraud. I'm pre-ordering the Warlord edition. I like it. I love the counters. It's part of the thing I love about the game is all the different little things, and I'm an idiot. I'll regularly forget stuff. So for me, tokens, rulers, reminders, stuff like that, they're all for it. Previously, I've loved the editions that came out. I like the cards because it means if you want to play narrative games, it's easy. Deployment maps are on there. So yeah, I'm for it. I think it's there. If you haven't pre-ordered yet, you still can, and I probably would. I dig the Warlord editions. I always get them, and I've never been disappointed by them so far. But I like to play... I don't just play competitively. I like to play narrative. I like to play like open games and fun story games and using like all the different cards and areas of the book and sieges. So I get a lot out of the Warlord edition. If you don't need anything out of the book other than information and you have all your tokens, probably not, but I fucking love it. I think it's great. The Hey Whoa leaks late and blurry. Out of 10. Jim G leaks 10 out of 10. Yes, definitely that was a solid. They were a solid. Like it was a really hardcore leaking. Like it's not an easy leaking to bounce back from. It was just leaks to the face and enjoy. Blaze me out. I want the online points release to leak. I'm trying to be super competitive, fair. Mark time. Red wine and Manhattan's later. That's a good way to do it. Caleb Mexico, leaks kept me from getting too excited. I would have been disappointed if I kept hyping myself up until the book arrived. Actually, that's probably a good thing. The leaks help manage expectations on it, which is not a bad thing at all. It's not a terrible thing that we kind of know what we're looking at and stuff. For me, the points changes were, and mostly because my army's rules didn't change that much. The points changes are what got me excited. So yeah, I was kind of keen to do that. Little bit of lead with your rum never went astray. Correct, Blaze Be Mad. Pirates were getting shot all the time and they were still drinking rum, according to like the 3 pirate movies I've ever seen. Cool Bunny, they got you excited. Good. Blitz has no patience and just wants all the info. You're already sitting there, the GMG review, just like screenshotting every page, and that's totally fine. Most players, yeah. Dad Hammer noticing that there is now a mini game prior to every game of setting up terrain, which is, that's it. It's all good. Tomb King, it's now not a leak, it's a gush. It's a torrent, some might say. For those who remember the times before Netflix. That's why we have mini engagements. 1 hour terrain set up, 30 minutes rolling up to decide if it's okay or not. Okay. Yep, that's the way to do it. Night Scribe, late, but here, that's fine. We've been talking about leaks. Not the leaks information themselves, but the quality of the leak, the blurriness, everything like that. Terrain rules. My slaughter troop went up 30 points. Yeah, I think that's the thing. The thing that with some of these points changes, they're not necessarily going to change how armies are built. Like I've seen a lot of Daughters of Cain player with still a very similar army, but they have to now sub things in or out or cut units entirely, and that's going to change the game. And I'm kind of excited for that. I don't want Daughters of Cain to massively need to reinvent themselves. I just want to have a fun gaming experience playing against them and feel like I have a chance. And I think that the points changes to the Hag and the Sister and the Witch Elves are really the 2 biggest culprits in people not enjoying their games against Daughters of Cain. It was so cheap to have like 3 Hags and then blocks of 30 stabby ladies. It was crazy. UNT Alex, Rye Old Fashion's where it's at. I'm a big fan of a Rye Old Fashioned. I actually even don't mind a rum and Rye Old Fashioned, so 1 and 1. Also quite delicious. Just at the moment, having moved here recently, my liquor cabinet, well, I keep trying to fill it, but then I drink it all. So I keep doing the thing where I open a bottle, I want to finish that bottle. So yeah. So that's kind of, I guess that's the review of all the leaks. I felt like, compared to some other years, probably not as crazy a leak a thing. And okay, we'll just quickly throw to the chat. What if you could pick one thing from all of the leaks that you've seen, whether it's community, blurry photo, foreign language book, whatever it was, what leak got you the most excited? or the most interested or will have the biggest effect on your army. So yeah, like Mark Time, I'm guessing the slaughter troop list going up by 90 points. It's yeah, it affects you a little bit, right? Like that's what 5% of the army, that knocks a few things around. That's a little bit less redundancy. Yeah. That's, and same thing, Canary changing I think is a good, because every army in order could ally him in and drop him on, and it was just, yeah, it was crazy. Blitz, this one, reevaluate. Yeah, okay. That's not it. It changes a lot. Night Scribe, the relocation orbs new layout. Yes, thank you. Praise to whoever did that. We really, really do love and appreciate it. Faction terrain placement rules. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Terrain rules, I think, are going to be very heavily audited by tournaments and players, I think. Yes, Magic Dude, no, thank you so much for bringing this up. I actually think this is a really awesome change, that you can't stack command points, but you can't stack having extra command points at the start of the game. You can buy one for 50 points, and it's important that you now buy it. You don't get to be 1950 points and then probably get the triumph for being under points, or 1800 points and get the triumph for being under points. You pay 50 points to take that. I think it's awesome. It's almost like it should have been that way from the start. And anyone looking at it could have told them that, but that's okay. Cool Bunny, the thing you're most excited about is that your Slaanesh army won't be changed. That's okay. You got another month after it drops till they release the updates to the more recent books. The deployment maps and scenery rules mess with your faction scenery. Yes, that is going to be massive for a lot of armies. As an army that doesn't have faction scenery, I'm excited to see it fuck with all of my enemies. So yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah, Dadhammer loving the Scourge Privateers, getting more because they're now cheaper. That's pretty good. That's pretty damn good. Gnomes Bane, you hadn't heard that. That's a big one, and I think it's an awesome change. I mean, and he'll just ask, having a bit of a problem with it. How many points was your army that you went 4-1 with at Wet Coast? And he'll just ask, was that 1600 or 1800 or something? How many command points did you start the game with for the Infinity War? 1800. So 4 command points plus the 1 plus a formation plus an artifact, I believe. I think you're on 7 at the start, or 6.5 at the start, and then rolling to get more back, and then re-rolling wires. It was a fucking crazy list. No more. You now have to be a regular person, and you now have to buy one and maybe get extras other ways. So yeah, I like it. I think that's an amazing change, and I think for me that's why I would label, as much as there might be things that are frustrating, and let's talk about that. Like in life, there are going to be things that get you down, and beautiful people, that's okay, because life is about complex things. You know, there's change, there's challenge, things are scary, but what we have to remember is that we shouldn't panic. No matter what happens, don't panic. The General's Handbook is just a lovely new change that we're going to go through. We're going to go through it together. The game's still going to exist. It's going to be just as good as anything. And while we might be a little bit disappointed in some of the things that come, I think it's going to be a good time, because we're not going to get shit mixed by a fucking 1,000 Daughters of Cain with a bunch of Hag Queens making them unable to run, or Grimghast Reapers that just come through and fuck you up so hard you don't know what day it is, and then get returned for a single command point. These are good things. Now, is it everything we wanted to see? No. But at the end of the day, Nagash can't sit there with 1 million command points and just shit out new units. It's going to be great. I also think we might be looking at the return of the shooting meta as well. Blaze Be Mad, scared for KO coming back. Their shooting's going to be good. Apparently there's points drops coming in for Sky Wardens and for Grunstock Thunderers. KO boats dropping. And for me, I've spoken to a number of KO players, or people who want to play KO, right? And the thing that they all say is that they wish they could play Kharadron Overlords, I can never pronounce it. because they love the boats, they love all of that. But to play a competitive KO army, you kind of don't get to take many, or maybe you get to take one. So I'm excited to see them as well. So I'm just going to quickly stick my head down here and make sure that I haven't got anything about to explode. No, we're good. There was just a weird noise coming from down there. I was like, something's going to go bad. It didn't. We're great. But yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited. My store tried to order one in and got told, "Oh, don't do that." Okay, right. It'll be interesting. But I think that realistically, a lot of it's looking good. It's going to be scary, but the thing we haven't seen from KO is a combat KO army. And now with drops to, say, Sky Wardens, we might see... I'd love to see more Arkanauts running around with the stabby pikes, with riggers with pikes, just fucking stab shit. Basically, I want a whaling Skyport, and that's what I was painting and building mine up to be. So, like, lots of pikes and shit. And like not cannons on the big boats, like stab the hook ones, those ones. Because I was like, that's the thing I like. And you could never really play a combat one because they were real bad. But I dug Barak Zon for that reason. City the First Sunrise, just fucking awesome. So that's pretty much it for talking about the leaks. Blaze Me Mad is right though. If you've got a heavy shooting meta, it can be over very, very quickly. Skyfire's Warp Lightning first turn for all those mortal wounds is terrified. All right, so what we're going to move on to now is got an interview. I have an interview for you all from the past. So I am going to hand over to my co-host for today. So my co-host for today, who has been patiently waiting in the wings, is Past Dan. Now, for those of you who weren't here at the start of the show, Past Dan a couple of days ago spoke to Chris Welfare, who is 50% of the Mortally Wounded podcast, because we had recently, if I just we have a look here, that's some new art that Scrivo did, which is fun. Hate that there's still a fucking Foster's can in there, but at least it is a Foster's Molotov cocktail, which let's be honest, is pretty much all that Foster's is good for, attacking your enemies. But that's not what we're here to talk about. However, everyone, mad props to Scrivo because he's a fucking legend, and is just genuinely a babe as well. However, we're here to talk about this right here, which were the Sydney Slaughter results from a week and a bit ago. So that's this is what we're the Gnomes Pain. The nudes for today have been rolled over into next week because I forgot to print them because I am a potato. I am so sorry. Those of you who are fans of the now weekly Send Nudes segment, nice unique drawings everyone scribbled, which is what we can also see back here on the wall. They're all scored. I usually get them printed out so we can put them on here. I forgot. I am so very, very sorry. I forgot to print them out. That's okay. We will have more next week, more NUDES, and it'll be lovely. It'll be a wonderful time. But for right now, we're looking at this because the reason I really wanted to talk to Chris was because you look at Sydney Slaughter, it's one of Australia's GTs. First place Khorne, Grand Host Nagash in second, which was a pretty stock standard Nagash 40 Skeleton Warriors, 30 Grimghast Reapers list. But then Stormcast Eternals in third was a Vanguard, like a Vanguard army, but with like Vanguard in it, led by a Lord Aquila, the bolty, stabby, teleporty guy. It was a really cool list. But then in the top 10, it was a really interesting top 10. So like Flesh Eater Courts, Daughters of Cain, Deepkin, Grand Host and Nagash. So there's 4 there that we would anticipate seeing. Now, the Deepkin army that we saw there didn't have many eels, did have 4 sharks, which just got like noticeably cheaper in the new General's Handbook. So I'm going to be having a chat with Ben, is the bloke who played that army. I'm going to be having a chat with him at some point as well. Khorne coming in there, Nurgle, a bloke named Jordan Burgess playing them, and he's a very competitive player. And then also seeing 2 Gloomspike Gits and 2 Stormcast make the top 10. Just a really interesting top 10, and a big part of that, is because Sydney Slaughter has a custom scenario pack. Now I'm going to post it in the chat right now. So for anyone who wants to have a look, you can check that out if you want to follow along, because we talk during this interview, we talk through it, so you can have a look at that if you want to check it out. But yeah, I think it was a really interesting result, a very interesting event. And so I thought, you know what, let's get Chris on, let's have a bit of an interview. Now, we couldn't make it work live because time-wise between here and Australia, it just wasn't going to work out. So that's why I'm going to hand over to Past Dan, who is with Chris right now in the past. And they're going to talk to you about some of the awesome stuff that went on at Sydney Slaughter. Now, Chris, I should also mention, is a Flesh Eater Courts player. I said at the start, a very competitive Flesh Eater Courts player who's done very well with them, so I talked to him about that as well. He doesn't play Gristle Gore, he doesn't play Dead Watch, he does play Feast Day though. Sorry, he doesn't play Gristle Gore or Blister Skin, he plays Feast Day with a Dead Watch. It's an interesting list. I mean, it still fucks you up because Flesh Eater Courts are great. But with your permission, chat, I am now going to hand it over to Dan in the past. Past Dan, mate, if everything works, now if this all falls in a heap, you'll be back to me in just a moment. But if it doesn't, Past Dan, cheers. Take it away. Thank you so much for that lovely intro, future Dan. I'm Past Dan, and I'm here talking to Past Chris. Now, Chris is 50% of the Mortally Wounded podcast, and also one of Australia's, to be fair, most competitive Age of Sigmar players. However, he's got a really strong vibe in the narrative side of things, which is where his event, Sydney Slaughter, every year is such a cool event. Chris, g'day.
G'day. Past me, future me.
Yeah, well,
future me.
I guess you'd be saying,
you.
Yeah, but God, we've got ourselves in a time loop, which is a wonderful thing. I mean, for us, it's Thursday, Friday. For when people see this, it's going to be Monday, Tuesday. Jesus, that's a head fuck at the best of times. But we're here to talk about a few different things. I don't know what you're doing because it's midday, and I know you have a child, but I am drinking. However, I'm massively hungover. So this is vodka kombucha, because that way I feel like the vodka is hair of the dog and the kombucha is apparently healthy. And so those two things together will make me better. Is that a thing? Do we think
nice?
Yeah?
It's almost like a flaming Barocca.
Yes. Oh, wow. No, kombucha does not taste good, but that's okay. Barocca, for those who aren't aware, is Australia's gift to hangovers, and it's a beautiful thing. Now, Chris, we're talking because just over a week gone now, Sydney Slaughter, or just over a week gone at the time at when this goes out, Sydney Slaughter just happened. One of Australia's big events, and a custom scenario pack as well. You write custom scenarios for every year, and the results were pretty cool. So how did you feel about it? How did it come out?
Yeah, I was really pleased with it in the end. I was a bit worried with the venue and things like that. I've changed it every year, so each year that brings its own new challenges.
Yeah. And then just that worry being like, oh God, please don't have everything fall into a heap or that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just little things like the week before kind of finding out that the venue was changing caterers, so they weren't going to be able to do the buffet lunch. So then kind of having cash refunds for everyone on the day for the lunch portion so that everyone could buy their lunch, then hope that the kitchen can actually cope with 42 people.
Damn, but
it was all good.
The joys of organization, I guess, right? Like it's it's the one that they just want to flick at you nice and on the nose and just leave it to you. Now, results-wise, before we'll talk about the event, we'll talk about everything. But results-wise, looking at it, it was a pretty rad kind of turnout that you had there. So just for those watching at home, I'm just going to pull those up so we can see. So top place went to Khorne, followed by Grand Host of Nagash and then Stormcast Eternals. But even the top 10 was quite a mixed bag and not what we usually see. What were your feelings on the results when you were obviously being the TO? You kind of know going into the 5th round who's doing what, doing where, but when you saw them happen, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I was really pleased with the results. Like, in a weird way, just it made me really happy to be like, that's cool. The scenarios I've written have resulted in the top 4 all being one army from each Grand Alliance. There's no duplication. Each Grand Alliance is represented in the top 4. and yeah, the top 10, even like there's only a couple of duplicates of like 2 Stormcast and 2 Gloomspite.
Yeah. Oh,
And
and,
the two,
also, and can we say top 10? 2 Gloomspite getting up into the top 10 as well is fucking great.
yeah, the only two there, both in the fourth and sixth. So they were very similar lists as well, actually. So it was really cool to see them both perform similarly.
And I think that we are starting to see Gloomspite maybe push their way into the top and start to podium more now. We haven't seen it for a while, but my theory is that the armies just take so long to build and paint that it's taken people a little while to get them together. And now those competitive players, they've had them built, they've had them paint, they've got them built and painted. They're starting to play enough games to get the army and where it needs to be. So yeah, I dig it. I really liked it. I love that the Deepkin list that did well was not an eel spam list. I mean, it was a shark spam list, which is a new, fresh, terrifying kind of eel spam because it's got more teeth. But yeah, I dug it. I loved everything that came out. And even the Stormcast list that did well wasn't a typical... Like, it was a long strike list in Anvils of Heldenhammer, but it was not... It was a ranger list, you know. It was using the rangers as battle line with the Lordy Aquila Pants as the general. So yeah, it was really cool, and I dug it. So I guess on that, talking about your scenario pack, do you want to talk us through the process, because you create a custom scenario pack every year? So how do you go about that?
Yeah, so each year it's always kind of, there's some narrative that I'll take inspiration from to kind of set an overall theme, I guess. So the first year was like a continuing actual kind of story of going through the different kind of realms or areas of chaos in the realm of chaos devoted to each of the gods.
And one of the cool things you did as well is you created a custom command ability for each of those scenarios. This is before command points. So you had these custom command abilities that you could use, but they came with the chance of a pretty harsh drawback as well. I loved it. I thought it was great. Because every time you used them, you felt like you were rolling the dice. Like, you're like, it's like phenomenal cosmic power, but at what cost? It was fucking great.
Yeah, so there's always like risk reward is a big part of the game to me. It's something I always try and build into anything I'm writing that's custom. But yeah, they always kind of have that narrative feel, and the first year especially, there was a lot more narrative, a less match play, I guess. I mean, I still intended it to be match play, but there was some very crazy, wacky things that could happen
there was
on the roll of a dice.
Look, the risk to reward started to, let's just say, it lent a little bit more into the risk in a number of places.
Yeah, like, I mean, who doesn't just want their general to just get killed?
Yeah, but, or to, like, I remember playing against one of my opponents in the Tzeentch's Crystal Labyrinth, and I fucking loved it. It was such a fun mission, but in my turn, I shot a whole lot of shooting through a portal that came out and just nuked my opponent. And then in his turn, I was like, oh shit, here comes his shooting back. He shot into the portal and then it just shot straight back out and killed his own like units that were shooting it. And I was just standing there being like, thank you, Tzeentch. You're obviously looking out for me. So yeah, it's one of those things where you've got to play for the random, the element of chance, but it can come out and just shit mix you, which I really enjoyed. But it sounds like you tried to balance that more with the match play as you went along.
Yeah, I mean, each year I've kind of asked for feedback, and I guess the main people that have given me feedback are try and make it like, if it wants to be a match play event, try and make it more I guess balanced and match play, remove the random elements and things like that, especially in the scoring with victory points and objectives. So that's something that, I mean, Dan Brewer obviously helped us out this year, and Dan's one of the top kind of competitive Age of Sigmar players, and he is someone that will give feedback, and definitely a lot of his comments were kind of, this can't be random. Like the things that people hated about old scenarios, for example, Scorched Earth, where when you burn it, you got D3. You could sometimes each burn 3, and you're literally just going down to the randomness of who rolls higher on D3s. There's actually like no skill there. And so that sort of thing, I completely removed this year. I was like, okay, objectives, they're never going to move, or if they're going to move, you're still going to know, okay, they could go here, here, or here. It's not going to be completely random, which is actually, I mean, you think of relocation orb, that's more random in the actual general's handbook than any of my scenarios could be this year.
And I think
And there was
the thing with relocation orb as well is you do know that like 66% of the time it's going to one of two areas, but on a 1 or a 6 it's going fuck knows where. And then the potential to roll like a 1/3 roll bounces twice, and then a 1/3 on that bounces twice. So the relocation orb, while you do like smart players to play for the two most common places it'll go, realistically it could double, triple bounce and just leave you standing there being like, how the fuck do I come back from that? So yeah, you're trying to like have an element of chance or randomness in there, but one that could be played for.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, that was in one scenario. There was only one where it could move. So yeah, I really this year just tried to make it much more match play focused. And with the help of Trav, he is a bit of a graphical computer whiz. He put them all into a format that was basically identical to General's Handbook. And
Awesome.
I wrote them with my General's Handbook open on the screen next to me, so I could use the same language for scoring, for objectives, for victory points, everything. So
I do find
reading it
is one of the things, right? Trying to get your head around the way other people talk. So that it's that small stuff like that you thought about that just probably your players were like, oh, bless you.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted them to feel familiar to anyone that's played a GHB scenario, like reading it the first time. And I did add in Realmscape feature, Realm Command, and Realm Magic to every scenario this year because at the time I was writing them, the consensus generally from people seemed to be, oh yeah, we'll keep the Realm stuff in packs. And then probably a month later, everyone was kind of, nah, I'm done with this Realm shit. I don't like it. And I was like, I'll leave it in. And I'll just like, at the end of the day, as with anything, if both players agree at the start of the game they don't want to use it, then they don't have to. I think the issue a lot of people have with all the Realm stuff is that it's in like 1,000 different books. So you're constantly going, okay, so to quote Snape, turn to page 394.
Yeah. And it's something that I know that Rob talks about a fair bit. For myself, it's one of the things I'm starting to notice more and more creep into the game is just that rules bloat. Like the amount of shit that you need to be across to play a game of War Dollies. Now, that's not a bad thing when competitively you need to be thinking about a bunch of things. But when you get to the point where it's like, okay, well, you need this book and this book just to have your basics. Like you need the core book and the General's Handbook, but then you need Malign Sorcery to know that, and then Forbidden Power to know that. And before you know it, like your amount of rules, and then like there's the tablescape effects, and then every army's got their own effect on the battlefield, and then the fucking whatever terrain pieces they get to add to it. Very quickly you go from the game that I think exploded competitively as fast as it did because of its efficiency, that easy to pick up, hard to master style, and now it is leaning a little bit more into the territory of like hard to pick up in competitively. It's very hard to step into. So yeah, I think like giving people that nice and clear is probably the right way to do it.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it's rules bloat, just in the sense of some of it's not even that impactful or hard. It's just, as you say, if you technically do it out of the book, like every game you'd be rolling for a Realmscape feature. And so then it's that trying to remember, okay, well, there's 6 in every realm, all these realms, same for a spell, which commands do we get? So by at least writing each one incorporated into the scenario, you could look at one page which fit onto an A5 sheet, which I put a copy in everybody's player booklet before the like scenario recording page, so everyone had a copy of it. It fit onto A5. You've got the full scenario, you've got a command, you've got a Realmscape feature, and you've got a spell. But it's just there. You can look at one page. You haven't got to flick between a load of stuff. And obviously I published it all kind of a month before the event as well, so people would have time to practice the scenarios, know what it was, so hopefully it wouldn't feel as kind of bloaty as normal. It didn't seem like there were too many issues, but
no, and that's been my experience of Sydney Slaughter in the past as well, is that I had one page to learn per mission, and I actually found it really exciting because I was like, shit, yeah, it's something different. It's not just the same thing over and over again. It's not, well, here's Duality of Death that I have played in every competitive tournament that I have ever been to since it was released. You know, it's not the same thing over and over. And yeah, I fucking loved it for that reason. And I was pretty devoed that I missed this one because I really like the thing that I really enjoyed as well was how you were changing up deployment patterns. And maybe we'll just quickly touch on some of the missions that you created for it. Because we've started to see some slightly different deployments being brought in competitively. So do you mind talking us through, especially that first one, the Gnaw holes? Because that I saw that and I was just like, this is fucking awesome. Such cool deployment on that one.
Yeah, Gnaw holes is, I think, the one that generally most people have said that is their favorite as well because of the deployment. So yeah, I mean, there isn't a single scenario that is triangular deployment. So I was just like, well,
and
let's do it.
It's Skaven themed as well. It's a triangular deployment on a Skaven themed scenario. How fucking perfect.
Exactly. It's 3 objectives. You got 3 Gnaw holes, triangles, a Skaven-y. So yeah, I just kind of I went with it. So yeah, as I was kind of saying at the start, where I'll pick a theme each year, and sometimes it might be a continuous narrative or something. Like last year was all influenced by a book series I'd been reading, Stormlight Archive. This year, I didn't so much have a narrative through them, but I just wrote 5 scenarios that were all based on 5 kind of recent-ish or maybe rumored upcoming new armies that were getting redone. So like Skaven, Gloomspite, Nighthorn, Flesh Eaters, and Seraphon.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, so this one, the Skaven scenario, it was like, okay, well, they've got the Gnaw holes. Let's do 3 objectives. Like triangles is definitely a thing with the new book, with the vortex and stuff like that. So, yeah, I just thought, well, how can I do a triangular deployment? 3 objectives. Okay, well, there'll probably be 1 in each person's territory, which means there'll be 1 in no man's land. And it's like, okay, that's cool. You can't go anywhere near it in your deployment, which means it's going to be a race to try and secure that objective. But then hold it, but then not lose your own. And
also
a bunch of stuff. So
looking at it as well, and for those who want to check it out, I would 100% say go and check out Mortally Wounded on Facebook and check out the pack because it's really awesome. But then the scenario pack as well, because the vibe on this one that I really liked is that it's almost like Knife to the Heart-esque. But your home objectives are quite close. Well, not quite, but they're closer together. So you've got this like almost lane like MOBA push against your opponent trying to take each other's objective while you're also like reaching quite far out of your battle line to secure the objective that's off into the kind of top middle of the board. And I freaking love it because I think like the play style required to do well on that, it requires a little bit of out of the box thinking, and I thought it's really awesome.
Yeah, it was. I wanted it as well because, like I said, that objective that's quite far away is quite far. So for some armies, I didn't want people to go, "Well, I'm take you for example. I'm dispossessed. I'm slow. I don't have I don't have anything that can deep strike, etc. Or I do, but it'll take a turn, and my opponent's gonna know exactly when it's coming."
Yeah.
So the command ability I added in was a teleport. So I was like, everyone on their first turn is going to get a command point. So they're always going to be able to do this. If your opponent goes, oh, they're a slow army, I'll just give away first turn. Then you're like, sweet, I can pick up my big block of, I don't know, hammerers or something, dump them on that objective and go, cool, now get through us.
Yeah.
So I tried to, in every scenario, go, okay, what are the armies going to try and achieve? What's the sort of combats and things that are going to happen, and try and give command abilities, spells, etc. that people can use to help mitigate some of the risk or the negatives in the scenario for certain armies, to try and always give people a tool. So yeah, it's something I do try and think about quite a lot, which is what I like. Although there's a narrative theme, as you said, I'm very much a competitive match play gamer. So being able to think with that lens in a custom scenario I've written, I can kind of think, well, what rules, what tools do people need to be able to achieve in this scenario?
Yeah, and so you're feeling like you're playing something fresh, something with a cool bit of storyline and vibe behind it, but at the same time, a game that you actually feel like you're playing, like you're not just trusting to the roll of the dice, or you're not just kind of like throwing stuff around and being like, hey, yeah, this was fun. It's that really beautiful marrying of competitive war dollies, but also like a good bit of theme behind it. And to be honest, a lot of the battle plans don't really fill me with much of a vibe of theme, if that makes sense. Like the General's Handbook ones, it's like they're the blank canvas for the story to be built over the top of. Where I really like that for these, it's almost like the scenario is the painting, and then we just add like our own little flair to it with our armies. So yeah, I dig it. I think it's really cool. So that was the first one. So the first one was the Norholes. Now, for those who want to check it out, go on Facebook right now or look up Sydney Slaughter 2019, find the scenario pack, read it along with us because it's really cool. The second one was the Bad Moon, and it's got a similar style of deployment to what's it called? The Duality of Death. That's the one.
Yeah.
So like your deployment zone is small. So like for all those people with grave sites, they get not go as crazy with them. But yeah, so this one obviously inspired by the Gloomspite release, and playing for 5 objectives as well, which I love to see, like a big objective play match. Where did this one come from? What were you thinking? What were you expecting?
Yeah, well, so this is the one where I said the objective can move. So basically, the objectives themselves move, but as with the Bad Moon for the Gloomspite, where it kind of shines in different board sections, I thought, well, what if you had the moon kind of moving and shining over different elements of the board, and it meant that those objectives were worth more? So I had this map going, okay, well, the middle one's worth 2 because obviously center of the board.
Yeah.
If you're all going to have a scrum there, it's worth more. But the other 4 are all worth 1 each. But then from the start of the second battle round, I didn't want it to be the first because given that the center objective is worth 2, if the moon is shining there, which is where it starts, it's worth 4. I didn't want someone on the first turn to just be able to put like a no drop or just put a little thing there and go, cool, that's 4 plus the 2 on mine.
Sylvaneth teleporter, like summon a bunch of trees, teleport a whole 30 dryads on it, and then just sit there and be like, yeah, bro, this is mine. I'm picking up 4.
Yeah, exactly. So it does start there though, so everybody knows that the center's important. 1, it's always worth 2, but also from the second battle round, it's going to be worth 4. So you kind of when it it's going to be worth 4 on that second round. So everyone knows that, okay, we need to be going for the middle, but the first round doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
So someone that just takes first turn to get there, if they then lose and get double turned, they might actually go up. Like now I've hardly got any of my army that was left sitting on the middle, and my opponent takes it anyway and is in a stronger position for the other objectives. But then, you kind of start rolling to see where the moon moves, and it will just move to, it'll either stay where it is or it'll move to one of the objectives as they're numbered on the map, and it's just always worth double wherever it's shining. So if it's not in the middle, then it's just worth 2. So it's not a huge swing, and you've got so many objectives to fight over anyway. It kind of doesn't really matter if the moon is in your opponent's territory for 2 or 3 turns, because if you're holding the middle and you're 2, you're still probably outscoring.
Yeah, I think the thing that I really quite liked about this is the moon moving adds an element of randomness and an element to play for. Like you still need to be playing for wherever it's going. However, I like that if you're dominating your opponent, you're not going to get screwed over. But like the moon might have a small effect, but I think that's the one hard thing about some of the General's Handbook missions with a bit of their randomness is that your opponent, you can be smashing your opponent, and then the randomness basically then leaves you with no chance of winning the game. Whereas some of the more balanced ones and the better ones are like, if you're winning the game, it's probably not going to have that huge an effect on it. Whereas I like this, if you're in an amazing position, the moon moving can give someone who's not necessarily in the strongest position a chance to play for the win, but it doesn't guarantee them the win. And I really kind of like that. It's really cool. And also the idea of the 5 objectives means that it's not like, oh, it's a 50-50. You're playing for 5 objectives, and then there's obviously always a reason to try and tactically get that one that's worth double. So yeah, I loved it. I thought it really cool. I dig all the missions there, and I think every year the hard thing for you, right, is that you have to create 5 new missions every year for Sydney Slaughter for when you choose to do fresh missions for it. So I guess on one side thing, you keep having to need to find new inspiration, but on the other side, I'm guessing the experience every year makes you a bit better at it.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, you'll notice this year as well. There's a few that I went. Do you know what? Like the General's Handbook scenarios are getting more and more interesting every year. Like it's not like the old days of the old world where everyone just played a standard pitch battle kind of thing.
Pitch battle, and then
You
there was maybe a little bit of something worth something as well.
Yeah, so like now you think you've got things like Star Strike and Scorched Earth and stuff, and there's scenarios that generally are quite fun, and I like concepts behind them, but there might be a little bit of a flaw or something like take the next scenario, spawning pools. It's literally better part of Valor in terms of the setup, but the thing that people hate about better part of Valor and that can lead to non-games is that you can burn on the first turn.
Yeah.
And otherwise, people kind of like that mission. So I was like, okay, well, that's a cool mission. I don't see why I have to reinvent the wheel just because I'm writing a custom scenario. I can take this as a base and then change it to say, okay, you can't burn on the first mission. And then I'll do the bit of risk and reward kind of thing. So with this one, I used it in the Realmscape feature. So rather than something you're having to roll at the start of every round, it's you roll it whenever an objective gets burnt. And it basically means if you snag it and you've only controlled it for a turn, you in terms of it's quite risky, you're just quickly stealing something for a turn and trying to get the win that way. You've got a higher chance of that backfiring and taking some mortal wounds.
So basically, just in case someone's not reading along with us, very similar to Better Part of Valor, where you've got 3 objectives in each side of the board. You can't burn them in the first turn. However, when you burn them, when you destroy them, things potentially you roll a dice to find out if something happens, and it's on a 1, 2, or 3.
No, one or less, nothing.
On a 1
happens.
or less is okay. On a 2 or 3, it's not too bad, but everyone within 3 inches suffers D3 mortal wounds. But on a 4 or more, basically the spawning was bad. And you fucking with it was a terrible, terrible move. And everyone within 6 inches cops D6 mortal wounds. Which I also like the balance of potentially using that as a weapon. Like if you know that your opponent's clustered around it, you can be like, okay, well, I'm going to try and set this off and hope it goes bad so that I can punish them. But then the every time that it's the longer you wait, basically, the less likely it is of things going bad.
Yeah, because you're subtracting the number of points you score when you burn it from your D6 roll. So, I mean, to get a 4+, if you've held it for 3 turns, you physically can't roll that because you roll a 6, take 3 off it. So, so I wanted it to be like if you're not rushing and you're not just trying to grab a quick win by maybe getting the double turn, doing a retreat onto an objective or something like that. You might be able to do that, but if you did it with a small unit, you might end up losing that unit to the D6 mortal wounds or something. So,
and also,
but yeah, I mean, otherwise
it gives you a reason not to burn them turn 2 as well. Like you have a reason to take your time and be patient about it.
Yeah, because you might hurt your own army if you're just sitting burning your own objectives.
If you delete all 3 on your side of the board turn 2, you're like, oh, this is a terrible move. I've killed however many mortal wounds worth of models and heroes.
Pretty much.
No, I dig it. I think it's really cool. And like you said, you didn't need to reinvent the wheel. You just adapted the current General's Handbook version of a mission that people like the mission. They just don't like the way it plays out. So all you did was give it a better play style, effectively, which is rad. Now, this next mission is another one that I really liked for the setup. Because you clearly played around with setup. So deployment for this mission is both armies deploy on half of the table, on the short table edge, but the same short table edge, which I just think is an awesome. And I haven't had a chance to play it. I wish I'd been there to see it played. So where did this one come from, I guess?
Yeah, I like deployment's one of the biggest things that I think you can just change up, and it massively changes how the game plays. because immediately you're not just going, okay, we're opposite each other. Like, let's take a classic Liam army and run forward at each other. Like, you know, you kind of.
Hey man, I can talk shit about him because he can't get me over here, but he knows where you live. I'd be careful.
No, it's fine. He's only small. So you can.
And you've got a child. But you can't hit me. I have a child.
So yeah, this one I thought, well, kind of similar to the Norholes in, I guess, the sense of having that one objective that was quite far away from either player's deployment zones. With this one, I thought, okay, let's do a 4 objectives, typical in the quadrants like you have. But what if both players were actually deployed really close to each other, and they were like, it was a race to go and go up the other end of the board and get those objectives, but at the same time you've still got your objective in your like home base that you need to look after, and your opponent's still got one there. So it's kind of like, okay, can I send a quick moving scouting force up the end to grab it? But if I only send a lightly armored thing, then my opponent might have time to take it out and then hold it. But also I need to not deplete my forces too much that my opponent can just come in and take my objective off me.
The other one that I think is interesting that you added into this one is that artillery and war machines are worth 10 models. Or did you
so
have
that's something.
Did you have that in all of them or just in this one?
Most of the scenarios had one battlefield role being worth 10. Because again, that was something I like. I don't like skew lists as much. I generally like things that have a bit of a mix. I like to encourage people to bring mixed army lists.
That toolbox that's just got a whole lot of different roles, a whole lot of different abilities, everything like that.
Yeah, so what I did was, this one was any unit that has the artillery or war machine battlefield role counts as 10 models. It's always, I made them always have to be a bit closer. So for all the missions, the standard objective scoring of being most models within 6 was in play. But then for anything where it was a special battlefield role counted as 10 models, they had to be within 3. So this one had artillery and war machines. The spawning pools one had behemoths counting as 10. So again, that one being because it's a burn one, if you have more models, you can just burn it. I didn't want those lower armies like that have behemoths and stuff. Yeah, to just go, great.
Chance. Yeah.
So they could at least put monsters on it and.
But I like it. I like that
more
even
models.
Something as small as artillery and war machines. It's not a battlefield role that would normally be particularly aggressive, but it encourages you to think about your army in that way and be like, can I be aggressive with my war machines? Like, can I? If I was playing my dispossessed, I'd be thinking like, oh well, how can I take a war machine and how can I get it to the other side of the battlefield to get easy captures? So yeah, I like it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's one where Stormcast would love this mission because they can just drop ballistas down onto the far end, and they've covered the mobility and the additional scoring models in one.
Well, look, Stormcast, they got their new book gave them a lot of fun new toys to play with. Like the one thing that people used to say is like, well, at least Stormcast don't have wizards and war machines, and then they're like, fuck you, now we have everything. So yeah, it's hard to take things away from Stormcast when it's so hard.
Although that being said, they don't really have a lot of monsters, or if they do, Star Drakes are a quarter of your army each.
Yeah.
So it's not like Skaven where you can just have a bunch of 260 point Vermin Lords and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's not okay. The General's Handbook is coming in less than a week at the time of this being viewed. So praise be General's Handbook, please. Save us from the horror of Skaven and hopefully Flesh Eater Courts. And speaking of Flesh Eater Courts, the next mission that you had was called the Feast Day. Now this was the final one, and Feast Day obviously near and dear to your heart. We'll talk about why in a couple of minutes. But this was obviously themed around the big fuckheads, the villains of the hour themselves, the Flesh Eater Courts. And set up for this was like your standard diagonal line.
So this scenario again, this was another one where I went, there's an existing mission that I really like. It's really different. It plays differently to any of the others. Most people love it. It's in most good packs, which is Focal Points. And I was like, I really like Focal Points. I don't see that I need to fiddle with it too much, but all of my scenarios are custom, so there needs to be something I change. So what I did with this one is I thought, okay, well, we've got that central objective again and those 4. We can still do the double up thing, But what I'll do is, given that I'm playing around with battlefield roles and stuff like that, I'll make it so that only leaders can control the middle objective.
Yep.
So you kind of combine places of power with focal points all in one mission.
Yeah,
Um,
and
which
suddenly
yeah,
that mission becomes that central objective becomes worth so much more because of the small buff that you can get. But the thing I dig as well is using like leaders, which most people's argument with places of arcane power is that it's wizards or models with an artifact of power, which means that most armies don't have access to it. Every army in the book, every army in the game has access to leaders, and there's usually a relatively good reason to take them. So knowing that that's kind of the thing, like, yeah, I really dig it. And then the buff, the throne buff as well for whoever controls the central objective is pretty damn useful too. It's effectively like a free command ability.
yeah, I didn't want it to be, because obviously the standard three are like they're available to all and they're not too crazy. I didn't want someone like Flesh Eater Quartz or a Deepkin army or something like that that has a very powerful command ability to be able to use that one for free. So I just thought, okay, how I can make this even across every single army if I just
Yep.
say they can use at the double Forward to Victory or Inspiring Presence command ability once per round without spending a command point. It's a nice little buff. If you're controlling the middle, it represents the Charnel Throne sitting in the middle of this battlefield for Flesh Eaters. And yeah, I tried to kind of, with the scenarios, imagine the realm that they're all in with the spell, and obviously Flesh Eaters have
playing, yeah.
They have Blisterkin, which are set in the realm of Akshi. They have this whole thing about their skin being burned because they fly too close to the sun. And so the realmscape feature for this I did as Burning Skies, which was if you've got flying units that move over, like that move really long distances, then they're going to take mortal wounds. So it's whenever a flying unit moves over 10 to 12 inches, they take a mortal wound, or if they go 13 or more, they take D3 mortal wounds. So it kind of was to slow down those really fast armies as well that have an advantage, because movement's so important, especially in this scenario where controlling the opposite objective gives you a bonus.
And especially when the objectives are so far apart. So say you've got a big unit of crypt flayers, for example, or eels that can just zip between objectives and take them really quickly. Giving them a reason not to necessarily jump on that or like a downside to their speed, I think it makes for a more interesting game, because like you said at the start, it's that risk to reward as to what you're going to get for what you have to do.
Yeah, because most of the time, controlling the objectives is key. Like, it's always key. So most of the time, if it was still me, I'd probably go, do you know what? I don't care. I'm going to take D3 mortal wounds because it gets me to that objective. It gets me the points this turn. But that's the thing of going, okay, well, if you keep doing that every turn and you keep relying on your movement, then over the course of the game, you are going to chip yourself down.
Yeah.
So it is that punishment a little bit, but without being too crazy. It kind of just helps for me balance out those armies, because the fast moving armies already have an advantage over a slower army. So let's have a rule that only impacts the fast moving army, so it brings the two armies closer to an even playing field.
And like, let's be honest as well, like sometimes when you're getting down to those final couple of turns, a Deepkin player might only have a couple of eels left in a unit, or you might only have one or two crypt flayers, or a hero that's looking to charge across and do it. Suddenly knowing that they're going to take one or more mortal wounds to achieve that means that you hesitate about it, because you're like, I can't just throw shit around willy-nilly and leave it to the last minute. So yeah, and again, like you said, it's something that you can plan for. You know it's coming. It fits all on the same page with the mission. But the other big thing there is that it's an effect that suits the narrative of it, which I really like as well. Like that planning around like the blister skin, the burning of the flesh. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Speaking of the burning of the flesh and whatnot, so we had Flesh Eater Quartz make the top 10. One Flesh Eater Quartz, one Daughters of Cain, Idoneth Deepkin, which the Deepkin, I'm actually impressed that they got into the top 10, given that they weren't an eel spam list. And largely the Deepkin lists that we've seen do well have been spamming the shit out of eels. One Grand Host and Nagash, two Stormcast, but also like the one that I find like the Nurgle list getting in there as well. And Jordan is the player of that list is relatively new to Age of Sigmar, or at least in the last 12 months. Do you remember what he was running?
He is new, but he's come from 40k and he is playing against competitive people as well. He's coming straight off Border War where he didn't lose with that army. It's a really tough army, actually. It's got a bit of everything. He's got 30 Plague Bearers for pure resilience, minuses to hit, etc. He's got 30 Plague Monks that he can run across the table, but there's also a Lord of Blights in there, so he can make them just as resilient as the Plague Bearers in terms of minuses to hit against shooting. He's got Rotigus, so he can do mortal wounds to anything across the board. So he's got that kind of ability to reach out and poke. And then he's got 3 units of Blight Kings in a Blight Cyst with a Harbinger. So he's got some more bodies that are really resilient as well that he can just use to.
It's almost like a Nurgle toolbox list then.
Yeah.
As opposed to how often do we see like Nurgle with 2 blocks of 30 Plague Bearers or just all Blight Kings? It sounds like it's a list that balances everything, which probably is why it did relatively well at the event as well. I mean, he is obviously a good player, but to put together a list that feeds into all the different aspects you need to, that's good to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, that was really interesting because him and Ben, who was playing the Deepkin list with the Sharks, they actually played.
Oh, wow.
They played in the Norholes, I think, and I was watching them play, and it looked like Ben was definitely in control of. He had his, and then he had all his Sharks and a lot more stuff on the middle objective, and then Jordan just had he was using his 30 Plague Bearers to wrap Rotigus on his home objective, and I think Ben just thought, well, I'm just going to ignore that because it's a lot of his points and stuff. He'd already dealt with the Plague Monks. And then I came back and it definitely looked like Ben was in control. And then later I came back and Rotigus was on the other side of the board on Ben's objective. And I was like, what the hell? And he was like, oh, I used the command ability to teleport. And I was like, oh shit, he went for an aggressive one. And I think Ben hadn't thought about it. So Rotigus teleported, made a charge in, and then just took Ben's objective off him. And it kind of turned it around and made a game of it. And I think Ben got the win by 1 point still, but it was a really close game. And it just shows Jordan's reading the whole pack. He's reading the custom command abilities and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it was good. He's a good player, and it's a strong list. Yeah, I played it the night before Border War actually, because we were all staying in an Airbnb together, and I beat it, but I only managed to get a minor win against it. And compared to how I did against everybody that weekend at the tournament, like that shows how strong that army is.
And look, it's not the Nurgle army that I imagine we see all the time either. So it's kind of what I really dig about, obviously, what your pack did, is that you have a non-standard Deepkin army coming 5th, I think. I think it came 5th.
Yeah, 5th, yeah.
Non-standard Deepkin, non-standard Nurgle in your top 10, Khorne taking the number 1 place with what is arguably like a punchy but still relatively toolboxy list. And a Stormcast list in 3rd that has a couple of really good abilities that we see in a number of other Stormcast lists, but then still sat in a very different place from it with all the ranges, the Vanguard in there. It's obviously an interesting pack. For those who are keen on it, are you going to do it again next year? Will there be a Sydney Slaughter 2020?
Hopefully. I mean, my aim is to do it every year. If I'm around and I can, then yeah. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to check out the packs from any of the years, they're all on the website. I always keep them all up there, along with the player packs, the lists, and everything like that. So it's mortallywoundedpodcast.com, and then under the events tab, you'll find links to all the documents from every year. So if anyone wants to go and look at the scenarios from this year and the previous years, then check out the website under the events tab. And yeah, play them. Like, the thing that was cool this year, I think, with them being more aligned to General's Handbook, was a lot more people had printed them off themselves and had been playing them in advance as well. Like, I think even the GamesCube, I think the coach himself had put a poll saying, do people want normal GHB scenarios, or do people want to play Sydney Slaughter scenarios at this GamesCube, and stuff like that. So it gave people more of a chance to practice, and it didn't feel as, the first year I remember everyone going, oh, okay, what's this, and reading it for the first time on the weekend,
fresh,
and me just thinking, oh, you're in for a world of hurt here.
Yeah.
Whereas this year it was like, oh, cool. People know these. They've been playing them like normal missions. People were really enjoying them. Like I had a number of people say like, this is better part of Valor, and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really cool. And seeing that mix at the top was what I hoped for. And they were all, as you say, a bit more maybe balanced or had a bit of this and that. I mean, the strong armies are always going to perform well,
Of course.
especially with the strong generals. Seeing the legions of Nagash, like Steven's not played that army much, but going through the lists, I was like, this is a really, really, really strong Legions of Nagash
I
list.
mean,
Like
his.
40 Skellies, 30 Grimghasts, and Nagash with a Necromancer is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, like, let's be honest. Grimghasts are probably, predictably, I think, are going to see a bit of a points rise in the next General's Handbook. I wouldn't have said that they necessarily needed it if they didn't release the Legion of Grief, and then we immediately saw a Legion of Grief army with 50 Grimghasts come third in an event. The problem is that they're a 4-up unrendable save that is regularly re-rolling ones with a 6-up save after it. You're restoring models to the unit, and then you're bringing the entire unit back for 1 command point. Like, Betty Dingus, you got no chance against that. Or most armies don't have a chance against that. Especially when comboed with someone like Nagash that's really hard to bring down. So you're almost, you're pretty guaranteed that they're not coming back. The only way that I've beaten them in the past is by not taking out the unit, just like getting the unit down to a manageable size and then not committing enough or not piling in enough to kill it so that they can't bring it back and fuck you up again. But yeah, they're a bit of a bad guy.
I've only played them once. I've only played against them once really, and that was at Masters actually, and I just held them. I just thought, okay, there's one unit, I'm gonna hold it, and I'm gonna fight over the other 2 objectives. So I just held it with one. It was with Durthu, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold you with 1 monster, so you don't get rerolls, and on a 50-50, I'm gonna give you another -1 to hit. So you're gonna be hitting on 5s and no rerolls. I can hold you for 2 or 3 turns and then fuck off and make sure I've won on the other 2 objectives.
Yeah. No, I did the same thing.
If people have got more than 1 unit of them and you don't have that kind of unit that you can use to hold them in place, then yeah, they're a big struggle.
They are. Though I was going to say, speaking of bad guys, at the moment the biggest villains in Age of Sigmar are the Flesh Eater Courts. Which I don't.
It should be Skaven.
Sheer power of battle tome. I think the Skaven have a much stronger battle tome, but
they do.
But to access the power of that battle tome requires a juicer with some skill. The player obviously being the juicer, to extract the good citrus goodness from it. So I guess the thing that I then want to throw to you is why do you reckon Flesh Eater Courts get such a bad rap? Given that on paper Skaven kind of have the better book.
Flesh Eaters are much, much quicker and easier to get onto the table with the stuff that's good. Most people don't have 30 acolytes, for example. The Dan Brewers of the world are few and far between in terms of somebody that has a full complement painted Skaven army of basically big units of everything so that they can take what they want. Like Dan is someone that has 120 clan rats, 80 night runners, like 60 plague mugs, 60 acolyte. Like he has everything.
And I love that he's got all of that, not because they were good at the time he was doing it. It was because he was like, oh well, I want these. Or he was like,
these are cool. These are my new projects. Like he converted all of those acolytes out of plague monks with green stuff balls and using Skitarii pieces, I think. And
then he painted them up as Pokeballs because he was like, I want to theme my army based around throwing Pokeballs and catching all of my opponents. And like then the new book comes out and suddenly this unit that he jokingly converted, painted and made work in his army is just fucking amazing. And it's like, oh, well, that one really just kind of landed in the court right in front of us, so we may as well take it.
Well, I mean, that's the funny thing. I'm finding that most of the results that have been posted that are doing really well with Skaven are these kind of multiple Vermin Lord, endless spell lists. And to be honest, like when I've looked at them and Dan's looked at them, like I don't think they're even touching on the strongest part of Skaven whatsoever. Like I think Dan's Skaven list, if he came up against any of them, would absolutely destroy them. but they're the easier things to get on the table. Whereas like the acolytes are going a little bit under the radar, to be honest, because they're what, 17 pounds a metal model or something.
Per
So
one model, yeah.
having units of 30 of them, just most people don't. But 30 acolytes for 320 points with the bonuses that book can give them, like Dan's done it, and like talking about Jordan's list where he has the 30 plague bearers that are naturally -2 to shoot with 5 up saves. Like Dan played Jordan, and Dan just went, okay, I'm going to shoot all these, hitting on 4s. And Jordan's like, they're -2 to shoot. And Dan's like, I know, that's why I'm not hitting you on 2s. Because he's given them like +2 to hit, re-rolls for hits and wounds. So it's 4s to hit, re-rolling, 3s to wound, re-rolling. And he literally overkilled a unit of 30 plague bearers from full health to dead in one turn.
I mean, look, let's be honest. The competitive scene in Australia needs to breathe a big sigh of relief that Dan Brewer has stepped back from tournament play to be more of like a support assisting role, because Dan, there was, I've said this before, the thing I always loved about being drawn against him and playing Dan is I not only felt like I had a great game, I thought that he was a lovely bloke. The thing I also loved is every game I walked away from playing against Dan, I felt like I learnt a lot, and if I won, I felt like I won against like, you know, like you see all of those typical like 90s sport movies where teams, like the big bad guys get disqualified, but then the team's like, well, it doesn't count unless we beat the best of the best. Like, beating him for me always felt like I was like, fuck yeah, it was a good game against a good bloke, and I feel like I really earned this one. It wasn't like I got around janky. I didn't out trick you with something you didn't see coming. I beat someone at their top, which is also the thing that I would say about yourself as well. Not to toot your own horn too loudly, but that's why it terrifies me that there are players like yourself who are very skilled, very competitive, very talented War Dolly pushers who then adopt these really tough books. Now, part of that is loving the lore, it's loving the background, it's loving everything. But you obviously adopted Flesh Eater Courts and took them to an event, and then just fucking destroyed that event so well. I loved seeing the little updates where it was like, I think at the end of day 1, you were at just under 7,000 kill points.
It was like 6.8 or something.
Yeah, now let's remember they were 2,000 point armies, meaning that
People should stop summoning them.
meaning that you killed 800 points above the army lists of what you were playing. Just fucking great. So anyway, I've got the list here, actually. I'll pull up the list so people can have a look at it. So, funnily enough, not Blister Skin, not Gristle Gore, just like Court of Delusion Feast Day, obviously, so that you can just fucking feast every turn. Nom nom nom, indeed. Like, give us the army rundown in the 1 minute rundown of your army, because looking at it, it's only 99 wounds, and I mean, like, yes, there's 9, 6, and 3 of flayers in the Dead Watch. So obviously we're leaning on that summoning to give us bodies on things.
Yeah, although no, because my summoning was always Vargoths. I literally, I told all of my opponents, I went, okay, I have 2 Vargoths. That's all I'm ever going to summon. Like,
Wow.
This is it. This is all I can bring on is 2 Vargoths, because that whole list works around keeping the 9 flayers alive.
Right.
So you keep those 9 flayers alive, and you should win. It literally is that simple. I never lost the 9 flayers, and I never lost the zombie dragon across the 5 games.
I mean, I guess
actually, the zombie dragon I actually had underestimated in terms of his damage output, but the first game I played, which was against another Flesh Eater's army, was the 9 flayers literally did nothing the entire game. They didn't take a hit. They didn't do a single hit. They just stood on one side of the board, then went into the middle, and that was it. My 6 flayers just were a screen and got killed. They didn't make any attacks.
Yep,
my zombie dragon, basically on his own, did 2,300 kill points.
Jesus Christ. Yep. All right.
And that,
Well,
like, so yeah, I don't even have the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist that everyone's going down that route of. I think outside of fishing for sixes, the Zombie Dragon is actually better than the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. He's more consistent with the Ren 2 on his claws with 7 attacks,
yeah.
and Ren 3 on the bite as well. The amount of times, like, I played Liam, and when someone has like cogs for a rerollable 4-up save, the amount of times Ren 2 and you see them roll that 6 and you're like, God damn it, you just stopped all my damage. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm Ren 3, you don't get a save. Like,
Yeah.
you get a rerollable nothing. And so straight away you're like, cool, that's D6 for every single one of these attacks that hit some wounds.
Yeah, and that's the thing though, right? Like it for me, I dig high rend. It's the reason I really don't like Nighthaunt. It's the reason I think Grimghast Reapers are underpointed, because you pay points for that model or you spend an artifact to get that rend, and it's real easy for someone to just rock up and be like, well, I got my little unit here and they ignore your rend, so all those points you spent on that model are fucking useless.
Yeah, and that's why the flayers with the flayers to go with him, because I played an ethereal vampire lord on zombie dragon for that tournament in the last game. So you're talking 3-up reroll ones, ignoring rend, and I'm like, okay, well my dragon's not going near you, so
yeah, he's got no hope.
My flayers have got some 6s to roll, like mortal wounds to just chew through that, and 9 flayers. I mean, in that game, 6 flayers did it, but yeah, having that dead watch, it gives you hero phase pile in, so you can get out of 2.9-inch tags. Those people that are going to try and do that to you. It's got very fast from the flayers. I mean, they can move 16 anyway. I think Blister Skin's almost going too far, to be honest. I don't think you need that much speed.
I have found that one interesting myself, because I think Blister Skin is useful, but realistically, when you're that fast, it seems like a waste of potential, because 9 times out of 10, they still end up at 3 inches away relatively easily anyway. So
yeah, and the biggest issue for me with that is that it's one, like, yes, everything goes a bit faster, but at the same time, like, the people that are doing the double move Royal Mordants thing is you have to keep your Vargolfs in range of that big unit, and they can't necessarily keep up. That's why having 2 of them to be summoned, because I can summon them from a board edge where I want them.
Where you need them to be, so the next hero phase, they're bringing dudes back from whoever you just shot around the board and jumped in.
Yeah, and if you've got the Infernal in that list as well that can go fast and stay on the board. And I had a game against, my second game was against Smorgan, and at the start of my hero phase, I was rolling to see if I was in range, looking to see if I was in range to bring back some flayers into my big unit, because he'd nearly killed them all, and I was only in range with with the Infernal, not the Vargolf, and I was like, oh, I'll only get to do it with one, and then I was like, oh, hang on, this happens at different times. So I just did it with one of them, put 2 back in a chain so that it made it in range for the other one, and then brought the rest of the unit back with the other ones.
And then potentially, because it's a command ability, like, then could you then, if that didn't bring them all back, summon another one from a board edge to be in range of that now daisy chain of
that doesn't work, because all the summoning comes on in the movement phase.
Oh, okay. Right.
So you're always bringing them on turn 1 up the board edge where you want them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
they're the cheerleaders.
They're a strong army.
They're on the side. They're just waiting for the guys to run past. And they're just being like, go flayers, everybody, don't die.
Yeah. I felt that army was stronger than... I think I could make it stronger if I took Gristlegore, because the advantage of Gristlegore is the double. It's not just the fact that you strike first, it's actually the fact that it means in your turn you get essentially 4 activations before your opponent.
And that is, I think, for my money, that's the reason people are hating on Flesh Eater Courts, probably more than they are Skaven at the moment, is that Flesh Eater Courts feels like a very non-interactive game. I'm actually interested to see what we end up getting from Slaanesh as well, with all of their abilities to make people go last in the combat phase and shit like that. I think that as well is a big one, because the reason that people hated on the old Goutfire Scorch was that it wasn't an interactive game for most people. And I think that's where Gristlegore gets a bad name for itself as well, because people are like, well, you just fucking do whatever you want, and I sit here and take my models off the board, and then even if I kill you, you then still kill me, so cool.
It does. All I would say is, as someone that's played against it multiple times now, the first game against it, I lost in basically a turn. I got
Mhm.
absolutely smashed. It was against Liam, and I flew my 9 flayers into the middle of the board, and he put all 4 dragons into it, and I massively died.
Yeah.
But I went, okay, need to think about this one.
Yeah.
And then I've played him twice since, and I haven't lost to it.
Mm.
And I think people just need to get used to the fact that generally the Gristlegore army, it's that one guy, and if you can deal with him, then you can actually, the rest of the army kind of feels like it. I know he's only 400 points, but the rest of the army doesn't really feel like 1600 points worth.
Because
Because
so much goes
I had
into
to,
making it. Yeah.
like, I had to beat Liam in that event, and he had, and I had basically a pure combat army, and he's got the always strikes first terror house, and I beat him, and it's because I learned there is only so much they can kill. So I didn't give him the 9 flayers because I knew I needed them for the rest of the game. But the
Yeah.
rest of my army, I bunkered down behind my 6 flayers, knowing, okay, he's going to come in with 1 pile in. He has to use that whole pile in to kill those 6 flayers. Most of the time, he probably easily goes through those 6 flayers. But if he just rolls slightly under, and it does happen, there'll only be 1 left. I can use casualty removal to mean that it will kind of waste his second pile in as well.
Yeah.
And if he does come through me, then okay, he's going to go in. And that's where my zombie dragon was behind and go, okay, if he goes through it in 1, then he'll probably take the zombie dragon off in the second. But I still then had my archregent. My archregent and my three flayers in range that he wouldn't attack.
Yeah.
So then because I knew I was going second, in my turn, I can then double pile in with both the archregent and the flayers, and then it would be if I won, like it's my turn next, because I'm always choosing to go second.
Yeah.
I had Dead Watch pile in, which happens in the hero phase. So even with those 3 flayers, I can then try and put the spell on them to get extra attacks. And that didn't happen in the end. He actually came in, took out the 6 flayers, and then whiffed against my Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon.
No.
And so then it ate him in return. And then he just conceded. But we rolled it out afterwards with him saying, "Oh, that if that hadn't happened, then I would have got this." And I was like, "No, because I had these 2 units still in range that would have been able to pile into you 3 times."
Yeah.
And I'd done that in my head, going, the strength of the Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is that it has so much damage output that generally it doesn't take a hit because it's killed everything.
Yeah.
But if you can put so many units in place, you don't actually have to have that much to kill one. Like 14 wounds and a 4-up save, they're not that resilient. And so that's what I did. We then rolled it out afterwards, and I showed that just 3 flayers and an archregent in those 3 pile-ins kills
enough.
it.
Yeah.
So even if he had killed the zombie dragon and the 6 flayers, I still had my 9 flayers to do all of the rest of the heavy lifting, and I'd got rid of the dragon, and I still had my 3 and my archregent. So there's a little bit of people just need to learn to play against it a bit. Shooting, once it properly comes back, is the easiest counter to them ever.
And I
Like
think
the 9 long strike list would have just decimated one.
Or a lot of these KO, Zilfin, 40, double tap, light Skyhawk units. I think the thing with Gristlegore is that, and not all Flesh Eater Courts, but most of what we saw doing well, is that it was a one-trick pony that fucked everyone up. But now that people are aware of it, it doesn't get it over. And there are a number of armies that are like that or were like that, and they get hated on, whether it's fair or unfair. But very quickly, they kind of get their ducks in a row and smash everyone. But that means everyone is planning on how to beat them. Now, you compare that to Skaven, which are fucking amazing because they have a great book. And it's really hard to plan as to how to beat Skaven because they have so many options. They got so much going on that you're like, well, I don't have a fucking chance against this.
Yeah, they have great long range in acolytes, warp lightning cannons. Even people are going to laugh, but trust me, even the Doom Wheel, with that more warp power, taking the Scryer stuff and adding it in with a bunch of clan rats, and then like a Screaming Bell or even a Plague Furnace and some monks for the resilience to Battle Shock or a Warp Seer. It's the fact that they have 3 big models that just give a base immunity to Battle Shock without needing to spend a command point. Loads of clan rats, which are freaking incredible because retreat and charge is such a strong mechanic, and they're still cheap, and in numbers they can do damage. But to be honest, it's just the objective game and the bodies to screen stuff out. And then acolytes, Jezzails, warp lightning cannons for ranged damage, and a spark. One spark can be used on acolytes to make every single one of them D3 plus 1 damage.
And suddenly you're like,
And then
Jesus.
the spell to reroll all hits and wounds. There's easily +2 to hit in that book for a few mortal wounds that you just don't care about when you've got units of 30 for 300 points. They just have everything. I think the book's actually great in the sense that they have everything. You can do loads of different builds. All it actually needs, other than the Vortex maybe, but even then, I think that's been, to be honest, overhyped a little bit, because I think people forget that you can unbind. Or, well, dispel rather, once it's on the table. I think everyone assumes, oh, they go first in their first turn, then you can't do anything. It's like, well, no. Most armies have a wizard, or you should put some mechanic of going, I can at least try and dispel this spell. Yes, it's not likely, but just saying they cast it in their first turn, so I lost the game, isn't. I just don't think that's fair. People are also not using all of their they're not using all of the space of their deployment. You can split your army in half, which is something that my Feck army did. Every single deployment was 9 flayers and an infernal on one side of the board, the rest of it on the other. So
you're not giving your opponent a nice, easy thing that they can just target with that spell and be like, oh, sweet, well, I'll throw that into it, and fuck yeah, that was terrible.
So if someone put a vortex down, they had to pick what side of my army they'd want to put it down against, and the other half's going to go and murder them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not,
and then no more vortex.
It's not impossible to beat, but yeah, I just
think they need a point. They just need a points adjustment. Maybe a 15% uplift across the army, and I think they'll be fine. I actually really like them, but at the moment they can just have too much, and they literally have the tools to do everything. They can do magic, they can do bodies, they can do battle shock immunity, they can do high range damage. They just have everything, and at the moment the points let you put everything into a list. And that's the thing. Other than that, I actually think the book's really well done. I really like the fact that they made all of the stats worse in terms of their plus to hit and plus to wound for the generic unit, because in Skaven Tide, in the big unit, you get that stat back, but it means someone taking clan rats in a mixed chaos army, those clan rats aren't as good as they would be in Skaven. And I think that approach is how they should be dealing with every single army.
Definitely. That's it. It means that it's that incentive. It's the thing that we always talk about. That reason for focusing your army on an specific allegiance is because those benefits affect you specifically. You take that army out of their allegiance, they might still be okay, but their efficiency, if we want to use efficiency as a term, just plummets once they're not surrounded with their bros from the same allegiance.
Yeah. But also, I think there's a little bit of people look into the books a lot more as well. Don't just listen to the internet and the net listing. Like, for me, I mean, you know me, that's something the reason I didn't take Gristlegore or even Blisterskin is I always personally take it upon myself to write a list that no one else is taking. So immediately
find the fun in the competitive aspect of it and have your list, as opposed to when people are like, oh yeah, I'm taking the standard blah blah list from that they took at Thingo and did this at Heat 1. You're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like that because one, it means that you rock up at a table and people will maybe underestimate it and think, oh, cool, I'm not playing Gristlegore. And in my mind, I'm like, no, you're playing something worse, to be honest, because the other reason I'll always pick something is because I genuinely think the list I write is probably stronger than what is a net list. If I honestly think that the net list is the strongest list in the game, what I probably find is that if I don't want to take it, I don't do the army. I end up getting bored and moving away. So if I'm still playing an army and I'm not playing the Gristlegore, it's because I think the list I've written is better. I think it deals with more armies. It might have a matchup that Gristlegore just destroys that my army has to be played a bit more for. But I like that I don't want an army that I just throw at my opponent and win. Like, I like that there's playing the game.
Yeah, you have to win by good play, not by just shit mixing your opponent, turning around and being like, oh, well, see you later. Turn 1 was fun. Which I think is hopefully something that a change that we might see come out of the new General's Handbook. Actually, speaking of, I know that it's the afternoon for you and it's your day off, so I won't hold you for too much long. But if you could get like,
right.
what would your picks be? If you could be like, this is the one or two quintessential changes that you would like to see in the next General's Handbook, what would they be? Because obviously that's all that anybody's going to be talking about for the next however long until we see it. So what would give me your top two changes that you'd love to see from the General's Handbook?
Oh, I want to see Skaven points get adjusted so that people can play them and not feel like they're being the bad guy and that everyone doesn't have a chance. Like
Yeah.
I want Dan to feel like he can bring his army back out and not just smash people on the first turn. So I want them to adjust the Skaven points so that we can see the army back on the table and them not become the bad guys.
Yep, fair. So that'd be your one, or that's your two? Like, which is that the most important, or is that your second?
It's probably two.
That's two. Okay, so
Yeah.
one. So what your Chris Welfare Mortally Wounded podcast
you put me on the
competitive play?
spot.
I know. I fucking like doing it because it's like it doesn't let you think. You just go. I mean, shit. This might not. You might say it and then just be like, you know what? In hindsight, fuck it. That's not it. But if you had to pick that one thing, what would that one thing be?
So we just talking like GHB stuff and not talking malign sorcery or anything like that. Or just talking,
Yeah, like we're talking about things that we might see
like
updated
points
and
and
changed in the
allegiance
GHB.
abilities.
Points,
Okay.
allegiance abilities, battle plans, whatever changes we could see in the GHB in like a week and a bit's time.
I want to see Seraphon get like allegiance abilities that people go, okay, these are great. Actually, to be honest, I think Seraphon are fine, and I think people just need to learn how to play them.
Fair. I actually think the same of Dispossessed, to be honest with you. As ridiculous as a comment that might sound, the amount of times I see a Dispossessed list and people are like, oh yeah, I only got 1 or 2 wins at this tournament. Dispossessed aren't that good, and then I look at their list, I'm like, oh man, that's your list. That's because you got the tools, you're just playing them wrong. And I think that Seraphon could do with a little bit of love, but at the moment they do have the tools. They might just be being mismanaged because we do see really talented Seraphon players doing quite well with them. So
Actually, do you know what?
Yeah, go.
I would like the change I would most like to see would be a change to Deepkin. I don't know exactly what. In maybe the points. Yeah, I mean the points are going to come into it. I just want to see Deepkin get a bit of a different play style. Like I want to see more. I want to see more Reavers,
Less
more
eels.
Thralls. But I don't just want it to be a drop. Yeah, maybe less combat eels. I feel like their allegiance abilities need a bit of a change. If I'm honest, they're still an army that I think the entirety of Battle Round 3, getting that strike first, retreat charge. I think of all the armies, they have incredibly very strong like allegiance abilities. Yeah, I think something about Deepkin. They're the one army at the moment that feels very one-dimensional and very much like some armies you just kind of get steamrolled a bit by them.
Yeah, I'd almost say a similar thing for me about Daughters of Cain, and though not necessarily because they are the be-all and end-all, I'd like to see a little bit of a change to Daughters of Cain so that we see different lists coming out. Because every time I see a Daughters of Cain lit army do well at a tournament, like podium at a tournament, I always pull up the list because I'm like, fuck yeah, what did they take? And 9 times out of 10, there's at least one hag queen, one hag, probably 2. There's a slaughter queen on Cauldron of Blood. There's Marathi. There's 130 of either Witch Elves or Sisters or Slaughter, and then probably a 10. And then there's a 30 or 20 of something else, and then another 10. And then 2 Flappy Ladies or 2 Snaky Ladies, and either a Cauldron Guard or a Temple Nest. You know, like it's roughly, it's 2 variations on the same theme. So I'd like to see a change, I guess, in a similar vein to what you're saying there. I would like to see a similar change with Daughters of Cain so that we see some fresh, different lists, as opposed to the same lists consistently churned out. Not to say they're not doing well, but you see the same ones. That's why I loved the Deepkin list that did well at Sydney Slaughter, because it had a little bit of eels. Sure, it had a little bit of eels, but it was mostly leaning on the sharks, on clever play with the infantry, and working the heroes. And I was like, shit yeah, I am so much more excited about that list doing well than a Deepkin list with 18 eels.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I think I'd like to see actually in terms of Deepkin Army is a fucking turtle because they're
Yeah.
amazing and they're never like even the shark list. It had 4 sharks, which is sweet, but
Mm.
I just never see the turtle. Like to be honest, the only turtle I see is Liam's converted one that uses a cauldron in Daughters of Cain.
It's a Cauldron of Blood and a
Like,
Daughters of Cain list. Yeah, it's an
yeah,
amazing model, but I don't think any player can look at it and go, okay, or I could have like what 6 eels for the same price as the turtle. Maybe
yeah. It's
more?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's also just the fact that its ability that it grants cover, you get in like 2 out of 5 battle rounds anyway
Yeah.
from your allegiance
Or
abilities.
if you are in cover. Like it's if it'd be a different story if it was like a walking mystic shield, but it's not. It's a fucking amazing model that the rules team kind of let go. But yeah, that's our kind of our wrap up. I always like to finish with. Do you have any shameless plugs? Anything that you're going to coming up that people can say hello to you? Anything that you have coming up? Shows for Mortally Wounded. Can we expect a GHB show coming out?
Yeah, probably. Our next show, to be honest, will probably be a Slaughter wrap up ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably try and get some interviews in with people that did well to get a bit more of their game run throughs and their thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
Coming from someone not myself on the event. And then yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about GHB and impacts and kind of we might do a who are the winners and who are the losers.
That's always the most fun.
Of the GHB changes. Yeah, I think the one thing I just wanted to say is I think people need to look at Blades of Corn again because I've seen a lot of people putting them in Tier B, and if I'm honest, everyone says Gristlegore are the worst. I think Blades of Corn do what Gristlegore do way, way, way harder.
Yeah.
And I think Blades of Corn, the right list, beats Gristlegore every single time. I wasn't at all surprised to see Matt win that event and at the top because Council of Blood in a Reapers of Vengeance is way, 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 way worse than Gristlegore because you're getting double pile-ins from 3 or 4 Bloodthirsters all going first that can all be 6 inches away, so can't be hit by Gristlegore. And because they're all heroes, if you give them magical artifacts, like it affects all of their attacks.
Oh yeah! All of a sudden, those couple of models go from being already pretty damn good to just Jesus Christ, please stop hurting me, Daddy.
And they only cost 280, not 400.
Yeah,
so
Jesus, 280. Well,
they're way better than Gristlegore. I'm just saying it.
Yeah, I think Khorne, once people start to get the skinny on them, they're going to come through as well. So yeah, hopefully I reckon they'll be a winner out of the GHB because Gristlegore and Skaven might cop a little hiding, but they've flown under the radar, so I reckon they'll be fine. Yeah, thank you very much.
Scarbrand did 32 mortal wounds in 1 round of combat at Slaughter. 2 grots. He only had 1 attack with his axe. Piled him twice and he rolled a 6 both times.
Fuck.
So
wow.
32 mortal wounds.
What was he fighting? Sorry, did you say?
Just some grots against
some
Magro.
grots.
I think
good. You know,
I think he went into a unit of 60 and killed 56 of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's an efficient use of his time. I had a grot that got killed by Hand of Dust the other day, so that was good. Single grot. Nagash had a spell left. He was like, I may as well Hand of Dust. Did it. I was like, congratulations, bro. That's a spell well spent.
You just had 1 left, or did he try and split a unit or something?
No. He was surrounded. He had like 60 in combat with him. And he
just thought, what the hell?
He still had a spell, so he was like, well, I can kill 1. It was a beautiful moment. Nagash wasted his time utterly. Made me really happy. I was like, I'm not taking it off. I'm choosing. Because you're going to have to earn this 1 grot kill. And it was great. It was a beautiful moment. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and dropping in and having a chat. In the past, we are obviously in the past. For anyone watching this, they are in the future, and we will cross back to future Dan in a moment. But yeah, thank you so much.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. And now that's it. That's me and Chris, obviously in the past. Future Dan, back to you in the same place that I'm in right now. Guys, we're back. Oh my gosh, I hope you can hear me. Past Dan, don't leave. Oh god. Oh god, it's all so bad. Oh, we came back too far. It's all over. It's all over. Oh God. The General's Handbook 2019. The General's Handbook 2019 ruined everything. The world just went to shit. It just went to shit. Oh God. Oh God, I hope you can hear this. I hope you can hear this because you have to stop it. No matter what happens, you just can't let the General's Handbook 2019 happen again. Ugh. There's nothing, all that's left. The only thing we have to eat is just cans of Milo now. That's all that survived. That's all we have. Grimdust Reapers, they didn't do enough. Daughters of Cain, not enough. Skaven, they never changed Skaven. It's just all fucking rats and bats for the next 6 years until humanity crumbles and we got nothing left. So, I mean, if you have any questions about the future, like I probably got a couple of seconds before all the Flesh Eater Courts players get me, but just whatever happens, whatever you do, that's just really important that we all remember to make sure that when the General's Handbook 2019 occurs, you need to make sure that you all Gristlegore is still for chumps, though. Just want to put it out there. Even in the future, if you play Gristlegore, you're a fuckhead. Like, future people know that. That's a future fact. Oh yeah, shit, that's right. You also need to make sure that you...